She disappeared the night before his wedding. No goodbye. No explanation. Just gone. He spent 4 years searching. When he finally found her cottage, she opened the door and said 3 words. "You're too late." He moved into her garden shed anyway. This is what happened next. Family, welcome back to our channel, where we bring you emotional stories of love. Because in truth, love and death cannot be escaped. No one can say when, how, or where. It's never too early or too late. If you're new to this channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification button right now so you don't miss what happens next. And if you're one of our returning viewers, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Now, stay with us to the end of this story. Leave a comment with your thoughts and like this video. Let's continue. The knock came at 6:47 p.m. on a Friday in mid-November, just as Naomi was adding cinnamon to her tea. She wasn't expecting anyone. Clara from next door always called first. The mail carrier left packages by the gate. Her mother was in Atlanta and preferred texting to surprise visits. The second knock was firmer, insistent. Naomi set down her mug and crossed the small living room of her cottage. Through the window beside the door, she could see a dark Mercedes sedan in her gravel driveway. Expensive. Wrong zip code. Her stomach dropped before her brain caught up. She knew that car. Not that specific one. He probably traded vehicles like normal people traded shoes, but she knew the type. The class. The tax bracket that could afford German engineering and heated leather seats while she was still paying off her 10-year-old Honda. The third knock made her flinch. Naomi. His voice carried through the wooden door. Deep. Careful. Like he was approaching a wounded animal. "I know you're there. Your truck's out front." She pressed her palm flat against the door. Her heart was doing something complicated in her chest. Half panic, half that old muscle memory of wanting. She hated both reactions equally. "Go away, Declan." Silence. Then, "I can't do that. Watch me call the police. Please." Just one word. But something in how he said it, raw, stripped of the polish she remembered, made her fingers freeze on the deadbolt. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. You don't get to ask me for anything. I know. You made your choice 5 years ago. I did. Another pause. It was the wrong one. Naomi closed her eyes. Her hand was shaking against the door. 5 years. She'd built a whole life in 5 years. Changed her professional name from Baptiste to Bishop. Moved 3 times before settling in Vermont where nobody cared about Boston society and Massachusetts money. Learned to drink her coffee black because the corner store didn't stock the fancy creamer his chef used to keep in the estate's kitchen. Taught herself not to flinch when she saw men in expensive suits. She'd survived him once. She wasn't sure she'd survive him twice. "How did you find me? Does it matter?" "Yes." She heard him shift his weight on her small porch. "Your illustration work. You're still using the same style signature in the corner. Those tiny leaves. I've been looking at botanical publications for 4 years. Found your piece in Vermont Life 3 months ago. Took another 2 months to track down which freelancer named Bishop was actually you." 4 years. He'd been looking for 4 years. That information lodged somewhere in her ribs and refused to move. "That doesn't change anything," she said. "You still need to leave." "I brought my luggage." Her eyes flew open. "What?" 2 suitcases. 3 boxes. Enough clothes for a few weeks. "I'm not going anywhere, Naomi." She yanked the door open so fast he stepped back. And there he was. Declan Ashford, Duke of Ravenscroft Estate, standing on her weathered porch in dark jeans and a wool coat that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He looked older. Not in a bad way, in the way that said life had happened to him, too. Silver touched his temples now. Lines creased the corners of his eyes. He'd always been handsome in that effortless way wealthy men were, like good bone structure came with the trust fund. But something about him was different. Quieter. Like someone had turned down the volume on his certainty. "You can't stay here," she said. "I'm not asking to stay in your house." He gestured toward her backyard. You have a garden shed. I saw it from the drive. I'll stay there. That's insane. Probably. It's November in Vermont. That shed doesn't have heat. I brought a space heater. He tilted his head slightly. And a sleeping bag. I've done my research. Naomi stared at him. This was not happening. This was not Declan Ashford, a man who'd grown up in a 24-room estate with staff who warmed his towels, standing on her porch talking about sleeping bags and garden sheds like he was planning a camping trip. Why? The word came out harder than she meant it. Why now? Why here? You got married, Declan. You chose Vanessa Whitmore and her perfect pedigree and your family's approval. What the hell do you want from me 5 years later? Something shifted in his expression. Pain, maybe. Or shame. Both. I got divorced, he said quietly. 6 months after the wedding. It was a mistake. All of it. Good for you. Still not my problem. I know it's not. He took a careful step forward. Not close enough to crowd her. Just close enough that she could see his eyes. Dark blue like she remembered, but tired in a way they never used to be. I'm not here to ask you to forgive me. I'm not here to demand anything. I'm here to tell you that I spent 5 years realizing I made the worst decision of my life when I let you walk away. You didn't let me walk away. You chose someone else. I did. You stood in your library and told me your father's dying wish was more important than what we had. I know. You said duty came first. I was wrong. His voice cracked slightly on the last word. I was so goddamn wrong, Naomi. And I need you to know that. Even if you never speak to me again. Even if you tell me to leave and I never see you again. I need you to know that losing you broke something in me I don't think I'll ever get back. She wanted to slam the door. Wanted to scream at him that broken things weren't her job to fix. Wanted to tell him that she'd cried herself empty the first year, rage-painted her cottage walls the second year, and finally, felt like herself again by the third. Instead, she heard herself say, "You can't stay in my shed." Hope flickered across his face. Naomi. I'm not done. She gripped the doorframe. You can't stay in my shed because it's full of gardening equipment and it smells like fertilizer and mice probably live in the walls. But, she swallowed hard. There's a bed and breakfast 2 miles down the road. The Maple Grove Inn. They have rooms. Stay there. And nothing. Stay there. Realize this is ridiculous, and go back to Massachusetts in the morning. Declan studied her face for a long moment. Then he did something that made her chest hurt. He smiled. Small. Sad. Real. I'll go to the inn tonight, he said. But I'm coming back tomorrow. And the day after that. And every day until you believe me. Believe what? That I choose you. That I should have chosen you 5 years ago. That I'll keep choosing you for as long as you'll let me prove it. Before she could respond, he turned and walked back to his Mercedes. She watched him load 2 expensive leather suitcases into the trunk, not the back seat, which meant he really had planned to rough it in her shed, and drive down her gravel lane toward the main road. Naomi stood in her doorway until his taillights disappeared. Then she went inside, locked the door, and slid down to the floor with her back against the wood. Her tea was cold. Her hands were shaking. And Declan Ashford was in Vermont. She was so screwed. The next morning, she woke to the sound of someone working in her garden. Naomi shot out of bed and yanked open her bedroom curtains. Morning light slanted across her small backyard. And there, in the vegetable plot she'd spent all summer tending, was Declan. In jeans and a dark Henley, kneeling in the dirt, pulling weeds from around her dormant herb beds. She was outside in 30 seconds flat, still in her pajama pants and oversized sweatshirt, her natural curls chaotic from sleep. What are you doing? He looked up, dirt on his hands, completely unbothered by her fury. Your sage needs trimming back before winter really sets in. And these weeds will choke out your time if you don't get them now. I know how to tend my own garden. I know you do. He sat back on his heels. But you mentioned once that you hated weeding in November because your hands get cold. So I'm doing it. That stopped her. Because she had said that. 3 years into their relationship. No, they're whatever it was because they'd never labeled it, never made it official, never been anything his family knew about. They'd been working in Ravenscroft's rose garden, and she'd complained about cold fingers and soil that fought back. He'd remembered. That doesn't mean you can just show up and touch my plants. Noted. But he didn't move. I brought coffee. From that place in town, Maple Street Brew. Remembered you liked their dark roast. Got you one with cream and vanilla because... He stopped himself. Because that's how you used to take it. If you still do. There were 2 paper cups sitting on her porch railing. Still steaming. Naomi's resolve wavered. Which made her angrier. You can't buy your way back into my life with expensive coffee. It was $4. Hardly expensive. For you, maybe. The words hung between them, sharp and true. Because that was the thing, wasn't it? $4 was nothing to a man who could drop $4,000 without checking his account. Everything between them had always been shadowed by that gap. His world where money was invisible. Her world where it was the first thing you counted. Declan stood slowly, brushing dirt from his jeans. You're right. I'm sorry. That was thoughtless. You're damn right it was thoughtless. Just like showing up here was thoughtless. Just like thinking you could camp in my shed was thoughtless. You've spent your whole life not thinking about things, Declan, because you've never had to. You're right. Stop saying that. What do you want me to say? Nothing. Her voice cracked. I want you to say nothing because I want you gone. I built a life here. A good life. I don't need you showing up with weeds and coffee and those eyes, telling me you made a mistake like that changes anything. He took a step closer. Does it change anything? No. Naomi. It's been 5 years, Declan. 5 years. You married someone else. Someone appropriate. Someone who fit your world and your name and your estate and all those things that mattered more than... She stopped herself. More than you, he finished quietly. That's what you were going to say. More than you. She couldn't look at him. If she looked at him, she'd crack. So she stared at her garden, the herbs she'd planted, the bed she'd built, the life she'd grown from nothing. Yeah, she whispered. More than me. When she finally lifted her eyes, Declan was watching her with an expression that made her chest ache. Not pity. Not guilt. Something rawer. I can't undo 5 years, he said. I can't give you back the time I stole when I chose wrong. But I can stand here in your garden every morning and pull weeds. I can bring you coffee even if you never drink it. I can stay at that inn and drive here every day until you believe me when I say that nothing. Not my name, not my estate, not my family, not duty. Nothing matters more than you. Nothing ever did. I was just too much of a coward to admit it when it counted. And what happens when duty calls again? Her voice shook. When your uncle needs you at some function. When your family expects you to show up and be the duke and smile for the cameras. What happens to me then? Then you'll be standing next to me. If you want to be. I don't fit in your world, Declan. We both know that. Maybe I don't want that world anymore. He held her gaze. Maybe I want this one. The one where coffee costs $4 and gardens smell like dirt and nobody cares what my last name is. Naomi wrapped her arms around herself. The morning air was cold. Her feet were bare on the grass. Everything about this moment felt impossible. You should go, she said again. But it sounded weaker this time. I'll go, Declan said. For now. But I'm coming back tomorrow. And I'm bringing better gloves for the weeding. He walked past her toward his car. Halfway across the yard, he stopped and turned back. For what it's worth. His voice was soft. You do fit in any world you choose. It's the rest of us who don't deserve you. Then he was gone, leaving her standing in her garden with cold feet and a traitorous heart that was beating too fast. The coffee on her porch railing was still warm. She picked it up. Cream and vanilla. Exactly how she liked it. She hated that he remembered. Hated more that she drank it anyway. Family, if you watched this story up to this point, it means it moved you. Leave your thoughts and tell me where you are watching from in the comment, and make sure to like and hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Smash the hype button now if you found value in this content. It really helps my channel. If this story touched your heart today, consider leaving a super thanks. Your support helps me keep creating these emotional stories for you. And every single contribution, big or small, means the world. Thank you for being part of this journey. He came back the next day. And the day after that. By Tuesday, Naomi stopped being surprised when she found him in her garden at sunrise. By Wednesday, she stopped pretending she wasn't watching him from her kitchen window while she made breakfast. By Thursday, she'd given up fighting the part of her that wanted to go outside and talk to him. She didn't. But she wanted to. Which felt like losing. On Friday morning, 1 week since he'd shown up on her porch, she found him replacing the rotted boards on her garden shed. That was too much. Naomi marched outside in her work clothes, paint-stained jeans and a flannel shirt she'd stolen from a thrift store in Burlington. Her hair was pulled back in a silk scarf, her feet in muddy boots. She looked nothing like the woman who used to dress carefully before walking the grounds of Ravenscroft Estate, hoping to run into him. She'd stopped trying to impress Declan Ashford 5 years ago. "You can't just fix my shed," she said. He looked up from where he was kneeling, hammer in hand, a stack of fresh lumber beside him. These boards were rotted through. The whole structure's going to collapse by spring if someone doesn't shore it up. So I'll hire someone local to do it. I'm local now. He gestured vaguely toward town. Been at the Maple Grove Inn for a week. Started recognizing the breakfast waitress. Pretty sure that makes me a regular. You know what I mean. I do. He set down the hammer and stood, brushing sawdust from his jeans. But I also know you've been working 14-hour days this week. Saw your studio light on until past midnight 3 nights running. You're on a deadline, aren't you? She was. A commission for a botanical garden in Burlington. 12 detailed illustrations due by the end of the month. Good money. The kind of project that would cover her rent through winter and then some. How do you know about my studio light? I drive past every night before heading back to the inn. He said it casually, like nightly drive-bys were perfectly normal behavior. Making sure you're okay. That your truck hasn't broken down. That you don't need anything. That's borderline stalking, Declan. I know. But I promised I'd come back every day. Didn't specify what hours qualified as every day. Despite herself, Naomi felt her mouth twitch. Not quite a smile, but close enough that she turned away before he could see it. You can't fix my shed. Too late. Already replaced 4 boards. Structurally committed now. Declan. It's just carpentry, Naomi. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to talk to me beyond telling me to leave. I'm just making sure your shed doesn't fall down. He picked up the hammer again. Consider it rent for occupying space in your peripheral vision all week. She should walk away. Should go back inside and finish the lavender illustration that was giving her trouble. Should ignore him like she'd been trying to ignore him for 7 days. Instead, she heard herself ask, "Where did you learn carpentry?" Declan's hands stilled on the board he was positioning. When he looked at her, something warm flickered in his eyes. Like she'd just given him something he'd been hoping for. After the divorce, he said quietly, I needed something to do with my hands. Something that wasn't signing papers or attending functions or pretending I was fine. Started helping the estate's maintenance crew with projects. Turns out I'm decent at building things. A pause. Better at it than I was at keeping promises anyway. The honesty in his voice made her chest hurt. The divorce. She shouldn't ask. Shouldn't care. But the words came out anyway. What happened? Exactly what you'd expect. He lined up the board and reached for a nail. Vanessa married the Duke of Ravenscroft. The title, the estate, the social position. I married my father's ghost and my uncle's expectations. Neither of us married a person we actually knew. We were miserable from the wedding night forward. Good. He looked up sharply. Then, surprisingly, laughed. It was brief, more exhale than sound, but real. Yeah, he agreed. Good. I deserved every second of that misery. You did. She didn't, though. That's what made it worse. Vanessa wasn't cruel. Wasn't unkind. She was just wrong. We were wrong together. Like trying to force puzzle pieces that came from different boxes. He hammered the nail with 3 precise strikes. Filed for divorce in March. She remarried someone suitable 6 months later. Last I heard, she's happy. And you? I started looking for you in April. He positioned another board. Spent 4 years checking every botanical publication in the Northeast. Driving to gardens and nature centers on the off chance you were working there. Calling illustration studios and asking if they knew a Naomi Baptiste who specialized in rare plants. I changed my name. I know. Smart move. Took me forever to figure out Bishop was you. Another nail. Another strike. But I knew your work the second I saw it. The way you shade petals, dark to light, like you're teaching them to bloom on paper. The tiny leaf signature in the bottom right corner. I'd know your art anywhere, Naomi. I spent 18 months watching you create it. The memory hit her without permission. Declan sitting in Ravenscroft's library while she worked, asking questions about her process, bringing her tea when she got too focused to remember to eat. The way he'd watched her hands move across paper like she was doing something miraculous instead of just drawing plants. He'd made her feel seen. Like her art mattered. Like she mattered. Then he'd married someone else. I need to get back to work, she said abruptly. Of course. He didn't look up from the shed. I'll be done here in an hour. Won't bother you after that. She made it 3 steps toward the house before her conscience caught up with her mouth. Declan. He paused mid-hammer strike. Thank you, she forced out. For the shed. It did need fixing. I just couldn't afford to hire anyone right now. When he turned to look at her, his expression was soft, careful, like he understood the weight of what she'd just admitted. You're welcome, he said simply. Then added, there's a loose gutter on the north side of your cottage too. Noticed it yesterday. If you want, I can take a look this weekend. You don't have to. I know. But I'm going to be here anyway. His mouth curved slightly. Might as well make myself useful. Naomi shook her head, but she was fighting another almost smile. You're impossible. I prefer persistent. Sounds more romantic. It's not romantic. It's stubborn. Noted. He went back to hammering. I'll add that to the list of things I'm doing wrong. She shouldn't ask. But, is there a list? Started it day 3. Currently up to 47 items. He said it so matter-of-factly that she almost believed him. Number 1, showing up unannounced. Number 12, assuming you'd want the coffee I remembered instead of asking what you want now. Number 23, not asking permission before touching your garden. Number 38, fixing your shed without discussing it first. You actually wrote this down? Leather journal. Keeps me honest. He glanced at her over his shoulder. Figured if I'm going to earn my way back into your life, I should probably document where I'm failing so I can do better. Naomi stared at him. This man, this duke who'd chosen duty over love, who'd married for family approval, who'd broken her heart so thoroughly she'd fled to another state, was keeping a journal of his mistakes. What's number 47? She heard herself ask. Declan set down the hammer, turned to face her fully. His expression was serious now, open in a way that made her want to look away but held her in place. Thinking I could show up after 5 years and expect you to trust me again, he said quietly. That's not something you earn with coffee and carpentry. That's something I have to prove over time. And I don't know if I'll ever prove it enough. But I'm going to try. Every day. For as long as you'll let me. The air between them felt heavy. Complicated. Like all 18 months of their past and 5 years of silence were pressing down on this single Vermont morning. I have work to do, Naomi said again. Weaker this time. So do I. He picked up the hammer. Your shed's not going to fix itself. She should go inside. Should maintain the walls she'd built. Should remember that this was the man who'd stood in his library and chosen his father's dying wish over her heart. Instead, she said, I make lunch around noon. Grilled cheese, usually. Nothing fancy. Declan's hands stilled on the board he was holding. I eat mine with tomato soup, she continued, not quite looking at him. The canned kind from the store. I know you probably had private chefs and 5-course meals, but that's what I've got. Naomi. I'm not saying you should stay for lunch. I'm just saying that's when I eat. If you're still here, working on the shed. I make enough for 2 anyway. Habit from living alone. I always cook too much. She was rambling. She never rambled. But the words kept coming because if she stopped talking she'd have to acknowledge what she was actually doing. Inviting him in. Just a crack. Just lunch. But still. I'd like that, Declan said softly. Thank you. Naomi nodded once and fled to her cottage before she could take it back. At 11:58, she stood in her kitchen, stirring tomato soup and trying to convince herself this wasn't a mistake. It was just lunch. Just grilled cheese. She'd fed the UPS driver once when he'd helped carry a heavy package inside. This wasn't different. This was just being a decent human to someone working on her property. Never mind that the UPS driver hadn't broken her heart. Never mind that she hadn't spent 5 years trying to forget the sound of his laugh. The knock came at noon exactly. Naomi opened the door to find Declan standing there with clean hands and damp hair. He'd washed up at the outdoor spigot. His sleeves were rolled to his elbows, showing forearms she definitely wasn't noticing. Come in, she said. He stepped over her threshold for the first time in 5 years. Well, first time ever in this cottage. First time in her space, her chosen life, her Vermont sanctuary. The cottage was small. 1 main room that served as living room and kitchen. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. Everything thrifted or handmade or bought on sale. Her art hung on the walls. Pieces she'd kept for herself, illustrations of her favorite plants. Books stacked on every surface. A worn couch with a quilt her mother had made. The life she'd built for herself on a freelancer's income and sheer determination. Declan looked around slowly, taking it in. Don't, she warned. Don't what? Compare it to Ravenscroft. Or feel sorry for me. Or whatever you're thinking. I was thinking it looks like you, he said honestly. Warm. Real. Full of beautiful things you created yourself. He met her eyes. I wasn't comparing. I was admiring. Damn him for saying exactly the right thing. Sit, she said, gesturing to her small kitchen table. Soup's ready. They ate in careful silence at first. Naomi focused on her grilled cheese. Perfectly golden, sharp cheddar, sourdough bread from the farmer's market. Simple food. Good food. Nothing like the elaborate meals Ravenscroft's chef used to prepare. This is perfect, Declan said after the first bite. It's just grilled cheese. It's the best grilled cheese I've had in 5 years. He dipped it in his soup. Vanessa insisted on hiring a private chef. Everything was organic and locally sourced and presented like art. None of it tasted like anything. Poor you. Must have been so hard. He caught the edge in her voice. You're right. I'm complaining about privilege. Sorry. Don't apologize. Just don't pretend you understand what it's like to worry about grocery money. I don't understand that, he agreed quietly. I've never had to. That's part of the problem, isn't it? I've lived my whole life in a bubble where money fixes everything and consequences are something other people deal with. Naomi set down her sandwich. Is that what you think? That you can just acknowledge your privilege and that makes it okay? No. I think acknowledging it is the bare minimum. Actually changing, actually listening and learning and doing better, that's the work. And I'm not great at it yet. But I'm trying. She studied him across her small table. He looked tired. Good tired, like he'd been doing actual physical work instead of signing papers in an air-conditioned office. There was still dirt under his fingernails despite washing up. His expensive Henley had sawdust on the shoulder. He looked more real than she'd ever seen him at Ravenscroft. "Why now?" she asked. "Why come after me now? You could have searched harder 5 years ago. Could have found me before the wedding. Could have chosen differently when it actually mattered." Declan set down his spoon carefully. "You're right. I could have. Should have. But my father had just died and my uncle was in my ear every day about duty and legacy and family expectations. And I was—" He stopped, searching for words. "I was 23 when my mother died. Spent the next 10 years trying to be the son my father wanted. The duke he expected. When he was dying, when he asked me to marry someone appropriate, to secure the family line with the right kind of wife, I couldn't say no. I'd spent my whole adult life unable to say no to him. So you said no to me instead." "Yes." The word was hollow. "And I knew it was wrong the second I said it. Knew it when I stood at that altar 3 weeks later. Knew it every single day of that miserable marriage. But by then you were gone and I didn't know how to find you, and I thought maybe that was what I deserved. To live with the choice I made. What changed? I realized I was dying anyway. Slowly. Every day in that empty estate with a woman I didn't love and a family that only cared about my title. I was dying, Naomi. And I thought if I'm going to die, I'd rather die trying to find my way back to the one person who made me feel alive." The words settled between them like stones in water. Heavy and sinking. "That's not fair," Naomi said quietly. "You can't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because I spent 5 years getting over you. 5 years building a life where I don't think about you every morning. Where I don't wonder if you're happy or if you ever think about me or if you regret what you did. I finally got to a place where I can breathe without it hurting. And now you're here saying things that make it hurt all over again." Declan pushed his bowl aside and leaned forward, elbows on her small table. "I'm sorry. I don't want to hurt you. That's the last thing I want. But I need you to know the truth. Even if you send me away. Even if this lunch is the last time we ever speak. You deserve to know that you weren't just some passing thing in my life. You were everything. You are everything. And losing you taught me that no amount of duty or family approval or ancestral estates is worth losing the person who makes you real." Naomi's throat was tight. Her eyes were burning. She refused to cry in front of him. "Your soup's getting cold," she said instead. He recognized the deflection. Sat back. Picked up his spoon. "You're right." They finished lunch in silence. When Declan stood to leave, he carried his dishes to her sink. She hadn't asked, but he did it anyway, and turned to face her. "Thank you for lunch," he said. "For letting me in. I know it cost you something. It was just grilled cheese. It was more than that." He moved toward the door, then paused with his hand on the knob. "I'm going back to the inn now. But I'll be here tomorrow. If that's all right. There's still work to do on the shed. And that gutter." Naomi crossed her arms, protecting herself. "And if I say it's not all right, then I'll stay at the inn and respect your boundaries." He met her eyes. "But I'll probably still drive past at night. Just to make sure you're okay. I can't seem to help that part. That's still borderline stalking." "I know. Add it to the list. Number 48. His mouth curved slightly. "But if it bothers you, I'll stop. Say the word and I'm gone, Naomi. Completely gone. I won't come back." She should say it. Should tell him to leave and mean it. Should close this door and lock it and go back to her peaceful Vermont life where grilled cheese was always enough and she never had to think about Georgian estates or dead fathers or the way it felt when he used to look at her like she mattered more than breathing. "The gutter's on the north side," she said instead. "You'll need a ladder." "I don't have one." Something bright flashed across Declan's face. Hope, maybe. Or relief. "I'll bring one from the hardware store," he said. "See you tomorrow, Naomi." Then he was gone, and she was alone in her cottage with dishes to wash and illustrations to finish and a heart that was beating too fast. Clara knocked on her door 20 minutes later, letting herself in with the ease of someone who'd been invited more times than not. Want to tell me why the Duke of Massachusetts has been camping out in your garden all week?" The older woman settled into Naomi's armchair without waiting for permission. "And yes, I looked him up. Declan Ashford. Very fancy. Very rich. Very not the kind of man who typically weeds herb beds in rural Vermont." Naomi closed her eyes. "You know, honey, I've been watching from my kitchen window all week. That man's been here every morning before sunrise. Plus he asked me yesterday if I knew your favorite flowers. I told him black-eyed Susans. Was I wrong? That's cheating, Clara. Everyone likes black-eyed Susans." "True. But I'm old and nosy and I've earned the right to interfere in your love life." She fixed Naomi with a knowing look. "So, is he the one who broke your heart 5 years ago?" "How did you? You moved here running from something. Or someone. The way you never talk about your past. The way you flinch when couples hold hands at the farmer's market. The way you changed your name and started over like you were trying to become someone new." Clara's voice softened. "I figured it was a bad man or a bad marriage. Didn't realize it was a duke." Naomi sank onto her couch. "He chose his family's expectations over me. Married someone appropriate. Now he's divorced and thinks he can just show up and fix my shed and everything will be fine. Will it? No. Maybe. I don't know." She pressed her hands to her face. "I spent 5 years getting over him, Clara. 5 years. And he's been here 1 week and I'm already letting him in for lunch and telling him about the gutter. What's wrong with me?" "Nothing's wrong with you, honey. You loved him. Maybe you still do. That doesn't go away just because you want it to." "It should. He hurt me." "Did he mean to?" Naomi lowered her hands. "What? Did he hurt you on purpose? Or did he make a scared choice that he's been regretting ever since?" Clara leaned forward. "I'm not saying you should forgive him. I'm not saying 1 week of shed repairs earns him anything. But I am saying that people make mistakes. And sometimes, not always but sometimes, they deserve a chance to do better. What if he leaves again? What if he doesn't?" The question hung in the small cottage. Outside, the November wind rattled the windows. Inside, Naomi's chest felt too tight. "I don't know if I can survive him leaving twice," she whispered. "Then don't let him leave." Clara stood, patting Naomi's shoulder. "Or do. It's your choice, honey. Your heart. Your life. Just make sure whatever you decide, you're choosing what you actually want, not what fear tells you is safe." After Clara left, Naomi sat alone in her living room, staring at the dirty dishes in her sink and the illustrations on her walls and the life she'd carefully constructed from the pieces of her broken heart. Declan Ashford was in Vermont, fixing her shed, bringing ladders, remembering how she took her coffee, writing lists of his failures and promising to do better. And she was letting him. God help her. She was actually letting him. The ladder appeared Saturday morning, along with Declan. Naomi watched from her studio window as he unloaded it from his Mercedes. Not a borrowed truck, not a rental, but his actual expensive sedan with a 12-foot ladder strapped to the roof like he'd done this before. He probably hadn't. He'd probably paid someone at the hardware store to show him how to secure it properly. The thought made her chest do something complicated. She forced herself back to her illustration. The Burlington commission was due in 2 weeks, and she'd been stuck on this particular piece, a rare lady slipper orchid, for 3 days. The petals weren't right. The shading felt flat. Every time she tried to fix it, she made it worse. Outside, she heard the scrape of the ladder against her cottage wall. She lasted 15 minutes before giving up and going outside. Declan was on the 3rd rung, examining the gutter with the kind of focus he used to reserve for estate ledgers and family obligations. Now he was directing that intensity toward her broken downspout. "You're going to fall," she said. He looked down at her, and something about the angle, him above, her below, morning sunlight catching the silver in his hair, made her breath catch. "I'm being careful," he said. "That ladder's too short. You can't reach properly. It's what they had at the hardware store. I asked for the longest one." There's a place in Burlington that rents commercial equipment. Taller ladders. Safer. That's an hour away. So. She crossed her arms. You've got time. You're not exactly on a schedule. Declan descended slowly, meeting her at the bottom. Up close, she could see he'd nicked himself shaving. A small cut near his jaw. For some reason, that tiny imperfection made him feel more real. If I drive to Burlington for a better ladder, that's 2 hours round trip plus rental time, he said reasonably. I could be fixing your gutter in that time. Or you could fall off that inadequate ladder and break your neck on my property. Worried about me? Worried about the lawsuit? His mouth curved. Fair enough. I'll go to Burlington. He started toward his car, then paused. Want to come? What? Come with me. To Burlington. We'll rent the ladder. Grab lunch somewhere. I'll have you back by mid-afternoon. You can work on your illustrations tonight. Naomi stared at him. You want me to spend my Saturday driving to Burlington with you? I want to spend time with you that doesn't involve carpentry or charity grilled cheese. He said it simply, honestly. But if you'd rather I go alone, I understand. She should say no. Should maintain boundaries. Should remember that lunch in her cottage was already more than she'd planned to give him. I need to be back by 4, she heard herself say. I have a video call with my mom. Declan's face lit up. Not with triumph. With something softer. Like she'd just given him a gift he hadn't expected. 4 o'clock, he promised. I'll have you back. The Mercedes was ridiculous. Heated seats, leather everything, a sound system that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Naomi settled into the passenger seat and tried not to think about the last time she'd been in a car this nice. It had been his. 5 years ago. Driving back from Boston after a rare dinner out where they'd pretended, just for one night, that they were a real couple instead of a secret. Music preference? Declan asked, pulling onto the main road. Whatever's fine. He touched the screen and soft piano filled the space. Classical. Of course. The Duke of Ravenscroft probably had season tickets to the Boston Symphony. 3 songs in, she recognized the piece. This is Ludovico Einaudi. He glanced at her, surprised. You know Einaudi? I paint to his music. The Islands album, usually. Something about the repetition helps me focus. I didn't know that. You didn't ask. The words came out sharper than she meant them. But they were true. For all the time they'd spent together at Ravenscroft, for all the conversations in the library and walks through the gardens, he'd never asked about her process. Never asked what music she liked or what she did when she wasn't working. He'd loved her. She believed that. But he'd loved her the way wealthy men often loved, assuming his attention was enough, that access to his world was the gift she should be grateful for. You're right, Declan said quietly. I didn't ask enough questions. I was so caught up in having you there, in the time we had together, that I didn't think about learning you. Really learning you. What you needed. What you wanted beyond. He trailed off. Beyond you. Yeah. They drove in silence for a while. Trees flashed past. Bare branches against gray November sky. Vermont in late autumn was beautiful in a stark way. Honest. Everything exposed. Ask me now, Naomi said finally. What? You said you didn't ask questions then. Ask them now. Declan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. What do you do when you're not working? Read. Garden. Cook, though I'm not great at it. Visit Clara, she's my neighbor. You probably saw her watching from her window all week. The woman who told me you liked black-eyed Susans? That's her. She's been looking out for me since I moved here. Making sure I eat properly. Lending me books. Being the grandmother I never had. Your grandmother died? Never met her. My mom's family didn't approve of my dad. Cut her off when she married him. Then he left when I was 6, and she was too proud to go crawling back. Naomi looked out the window. We've been on our own since then. Just the 2 of us. That must have been hard. It was life. You work with what you have. She turned to face him. Your turn. What do you do when you're not being the Duke? I don't know anymore. He said it so honestly it hurt. For 5 years I've been going through the motions. Estate business. Charity functions. Board meetings. But none of it feels real. I'm just playing a part. What about friends? Most of my friends are really my family's friends. People I've known since prep school who care more about my title than my personality. After the divorce, half of them sided with Vanessa's family anyway. The politics of old money. He merged onto the highway. The maintenance crew at Ravenscroft, James and his team, they're probably the closest thing I have to real friends now. They're the only ones who tell me when I'm being an entitled asshole. Despite herself, Naomi smiled. Are you an entitled asshole? Sometimes. I'm working on it. How's that going? Well, I drove an hour for a ladder because the woman I love told me the first one was inadequate. So. He glanced at her. You tell me. The casual way he said it, the woman I love, made her stomach flip. Don't, she said. Don't what? Say things like that. Like it's simple. It is simple. I love you. I've loved you since you spent 3 hours explaining the pollination process of ghost orchids while sitting in my mother's greenhouse. I loved you when you laughed at my terrible jokes. I loved you when you told me my family's rose garden needed better drainage and didn't care that you were criticizing something my mother designed. I loved you then. I love you now. That's the simple part. And the complicated part? The complicated part is that I was too much of a coward to choose that love when it mattered. The complicated part is that I hurt you. The complicated part is earning the right to say these things out loud instead of just thinking them every day for 5 years. Naomi's chest was tight. You can't just say you love me and expect that to fix everything. I know. That's why I'm starting with ladders. He said it so seriously that she almost laughed. Almost. And gutters. And shed repairs. And showing up every day even when you tell me to leave. I'm building my way back to you, Naomi. One small thing at a time. Until maybe, eventually, you believe me when I say I'm not going anywhere this time. What if I never believe you? Then I'll keep building anyway. Because you deserve someone who shows up. Whether you let me in or not. They drove the rest of the way in silence. But it was different now. Less careful. Like something between them had shifted. Not fixed, but acknowledged. Opened. The equipment rental place in Burlington was staffed by a college kid who looked bored until Declan explained what he needed. Then the kid perked up, clearly delighted to help someone who had no idea what he was doing. You want the 20-footer, the kid said, leading them through aisles of industrial equipment. Safer extension. Better weight distribution. You doing residential repair. Gutter work, Declan confirmed. Single story. Yes. Pitched roof. Declan looked at Naomi. She tried not to smile. It's pitched. Cool. So you'll want the stabilizer bar too. Keeps the ladder from sliding on the angle. And definitely grab the safety harness. 20 minutes later, they'd rented enough equipment to repair a small commercial building. The kid loaded everything into Declan's Mercedes with the kind of care usually reserved for delicate cargo. First time doing home repair? The kid asked. Is it that obvious? Dude, you're wearing a watch that costs more than my car. Yeah, it's obvious. But he said it kindly. YouTube's your friend. Search gutter repair basics. There's a guy called Home Repair Henry. He's great. Shows you everything step by step. After the kid walked away, Naomi looked at Declan. Home Repair Henry. Don't judge me. I've already watched 17 of his videos. This time she did laugh. Couldn't help it. The image of Declan Ashford, Duke of Ravenscroft Estate, sitting in his room watching YouTube tutorials on basic home maintenance was too much. What? Declan asked, but he was smiling too. Nothing. It's just, you have staff. You could hire someone to fix my gutter in an hour. I could. But then I wouldn't have an excuse to see you every day. You don't need an excuse. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Declan went very still. I don't. Naomi looked away, flustered. I just mean, you've been coming every day anyway. The work is just work. You don't have to justify it with repairs. So if I showed up tomorrow with no ladder and no projects, you wouldn't send me away? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. She was making this worse. I'm just saying the shed and the gutter aren't the reason you're still here. What is the reason? She finally met his eyes. You tell me. Because I'm trying to prove I've changed. That I'm not the man who chose wrong. That I can be someone you'd want in your life, even if it's just as the guy who fixes things around your cottage. He took a careful step closer. Because every morning I wake up and the first thing I think is that I get to see you today. And that's worth driving an hour for a ladder. Worth sleeping in an inn instead of my own bed. Worth whatever it takes. Her throat was tight again. Declan. It's okay if you're not there yet. If you never get there. I meant what I said. I'll keep showing up either way. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, grateful for the interruption. It was a text from her mother. Call me when you can. Nothing urgent. Love you. Everything okay? Declan asked. Yeah. Just my mom checking in. She typed back quickly. Calling at 4. Love you too. You two are close. Very. She's my best friend. Naomi pocketed her phone. She doesn't know you're here. Doesn't know you found me. I haven't told her yet. Why not? Because she'll have opinions. Strong ones. About whether I should give you another chance. And I don't know if I'm ready to hear them. What do you think she'd say? Naomi considered. Her mother had held her through the worst of the heartbreak 5 years ago. Had helped her pack. Had driven her to Vermont and stayed for 2 weeks to make sure she was really okay. Had never once said I told you so, even though she'd warned Naomi that men like Declan Ashford didn't choose women like them when it counted. She'd say I should protect myself, Naomi said finally. That I've worked too hard to rebuild my life to risk it on someone who already broke my heart once. She'd be right. I know. But Naomi looked at him, really looked at him. At the man who'd spent 4 years searching. Who was learning carpentry from YouTube. Who drove an hour for a better ladder because she said the first one wasn't safe. Who looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. But I'm tired of being safe, she admitted quietly. I've been safe for 5 years. And I'm still alone. You don't have to be. Don't I? You live in Massachusetts. In an estate with 400 acres and staff and obligations. I live in a rented cottage in Vermont. I make $45,000 a year on a good year. I shop at thrift stores and cook with canned soup and drive a truck that's 1 winter away from dying. Our worlds don't fit, Declan. They never did. Then I'll move. She stared at him. What? I'll move. To Vermont. I can work remotely. Most of the estate business is handled by managers anyway. I'll find a place here. Near you but not too near. Give you space but be close enough that you know I'm serious. You can't just move. Why not? Because you're the Duke of Ravenscroft. Because you have responsibilities. Because nothing. His voice was firm. I've spent my entire life letting my title dictate my choices. Where I live. Who I marry. What I want. I'm done, Naomi. I'm done choosing duty over the person I love. If you're here, then this is where I want to be. Title or no title. Estate or no estate. Your family would disown you. Half of them already have. For divorcing Vanessa. For refusing to remarry someone appropriate. For not caring about the social calendar and charity galas and all the things a good duke is supposed to care about. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. I lost you once because I was afraid of losing them. I'm not making that mistake again. His hand was warm. Callous now, From the carpentry, from actual work instead of just signing papers. She should pull away. Should maintain distance. She didn't. "This is insane," she whispered. "Probably. You've been here 2 weeks. 12 days. But who's counting?" "Declan, I can't." She didn't know how to finish the sentence. Couldn't articulate the fear and hope and confusion all tangled in her chest. "You don't have to decide anything today," he said gently. "Or tomorrow. Or next week. I'm just telling you what I'm willing to do. What I want to do. The rest is up to you." Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Clara. "That Duke better be treating you right. I'm watching. I have binoculars." Despite everything, Naomi laughed. Showed Declan the text. He grinned. "I like her already. She's terrifying. Fair warning. Noted. I'll bring her cookies tomorrow. Bribery seems wise. She's diabetic. Sugar-free cookies. Those taste like sadness. Then I'll bring flowers. Everyone likes flowers. She'll interrogate you about your intentions." Good. She should. Declan squeezed her hand once, then let go. "Anyone who loves you should make sure I deserve a second chance." They stood in the parking lot of a Burlington equipment rental place, November wind cutting through their coats, and Naomi felt something shift inside her chest. Not healing, not yet. But maybe the beginning of it. Like a crack in ice, letting light through. "We should get lunch," she said. "If you want me back by 4. Anywhere you want to go. There's a sandwich place near the lake. Nothing fancy. They have good bread." "Sounds perfect." They ate sandwiches on a bench overlooking Lake Champlain. The water was gray and choppy, matching the sky. Other couples walked past. Actual couples, holding hands, leaning into each other against the wind. Naomi wondered if they looked like that. If anyone watching would think they belonged together. "Tell me about your illustrations," Declan said. "The commission you're working on. What's giving you trouble?" So she told him. About the lady's slipper orchid that wouldn't cooperate. About the challenge of capturing the way light hit the petals. Pink and white and somehow translucent all at once. About how she'd repainted it 6 times and it still wasn't right. And he listened. Really listened. Asked questions about her technique, about what made this particular flower difficult, about whether she'd tried different paper types or different lighting in her studio. "I used to watch you work," he said after a while. "At Ravenscroft. You'd get this look on your face. Completely focused, like nothing else existed except you and the plant and the paper. I was always afraid to interrupt. Afraid to break whatever spell you were under. I wouldn't have minded. If you'd interrupted. I know that now. But then I thought you were doing me a favor. Spending time with me. That someone like you, talented, independent, real, couldn't actually want to be with someone like me. Someone like you. Someone whose entire identity is tied to a name I didn't earn. A title I inherited. Money I did nothing to deserve." He stared at the lake. "My whole life, people have wanted me for what I represent. The estate. The social position. The connections. You were the first person who seemed interested in me. Just me. The guy who liked old books and terrible puns and watching you paint." "I was interested in you," Naomi said quietly. She stopped herself. "You still what?" She shook her head. "We should get back. My mom's call." Declan checked his watch. "We have time. But if you want to go, we'll go." The drive back was quieter. Comfortable almost. Like they'd crossed some invisible line and were both trying to figure out what that meant. When he pulled into her driveway at 3:47, Naomi didn't immediately get out. "Thank you," she said. "For the ladder. For lunch. For today. Thank you for coming with me." He shifted in his seat to face her. "Can I ask you something?" "Depends on the question." "If I kissed you right now, would you let me?" Her breath caught. "Declan." "I'm not going to," he said quickly. "Not without your permission. Not until you're ready." I'm just asking. Is that something you think you might want? Eventually. Naomi's heart was pounding. She looked at his mouth. Lips she'd kissed 100 times 5 years ago. Lips that had told her he loved her and then, 3 weeks later, promised themselves to someone else. I don't know, she whispered honestly. Part of me wants to. Part of me is terrified. That's fair. He didn't look disappointed. Just thoughtful. I can work with that. She got out of the car before she could do something stupid. Like lean across the console and find out if he still tasted like she remembered. Tomorrow, he called through the open window. For the gutter. For whatever you'll let me fix. Naomi shook her head, but she was almost smiling. You're impossible. I prefer persistent. Still not romantic. Give me time. He put the car in reverse. I'll convince you eventually. She watched him drive away, then went inside to call her mother and try to explain why the Duke who broke her heart was currently living at a bed and breakfast 2 miles down the road and fixing her cottage one repair at a time. This was going to be a long conversation. You're telling me, her mother said slowly, voice crackling through the phone, that Declan Ashford, the man who chose a society wedding over you 5 years ago, is currently in Vermont fixing your gutter? Naomi sat cross-legged on her couch, phone pressed to her ear. That's what I'm telling you. And you're letting him? Apparently. Silence. Then, baby, what are you thinking? I don't know, Mama. I really don't know. Patricia Baptiste sighed, the kind of sigh that carried 33 years of motherhood and hard-won wisdom. Tell me everything. From the beginning. So Naomi did. The knock on her door 12 days ago. The camping in the shed threat. The daily appearances. The coffee and the weeding and the shed repairs. The lunch. The trip to Burlington. All of it spilled out in a rush of words that made her sound exactly like what she was. Confused and scared and maybe possibly starting to hope again. He says he loves me, she finished. Says he's been looking for me for 4 years. Says he'll move to Vermont if that's what it takes. Men say a lot of things when they want something. I know. Do you believe him? Naomi stared at her cottage ceiling, at the water stain in the corner she kept meaning to paint over. I don't know. Sometimes. When he's working in my garden and his hands are dirty and he looks so different from the Duke I remember. Then I believe him. But then I remember standing in his library 5 years ago while he told me duty came first, and I don't know what to believe. What does your gut tell you? That I'm going to get hurt again. Maybe. Or maybe he's telling the truth. Her mother paused. I can't tell you what to do, baby. You're 33 years old. You've built a good life for yourself. But I will say this, people can change. Not always. Not often. But sometimes they grow up. Sometimes they realize what they lost and spend years trying to earn it back. The question isn't whether he's changed. The question is whether you're willing to risk finding out. What if he leaves again? Then you'll survive again. Just like you did before. You're stronger than you think, Naomi. You've always been stronger than you think. After they hung up, Naomi sat alone with her thoughts and the sound of November wind against her windows. Outside, darkness was falling. In 12 hours, Declan would be back. Working on her gutter. Bringing better tools. Looking at her like she was worth uprooting his entire life for. She should send him away. Should protect herself. Should remember that fairy tales weren't real and dukes didn't actually choose ordinary women when the choice really mattered. But he'd already chosen her once, in small ways, over 18 months at Ravenscroft. Chosen her company over social obligations. Chosen quiet evenings in the library over family dinners. Chosen stolen moments in the rose garden over everything else his life demanded. Until his father died and fear won. Her phone buzzed. A text from Declan made it back to the inn. Thank you again for today. Sleep well. She stared at the message. 3 sentences. Nothing demanding. Nothing presumptuous. Just letting her know he was safe. She typed back, you too. Then, before she could overthink it, bring better gloves tomorrow. The ones you have are too thin. His response came immediately. "Yes, ma'am." Then, "Does this mean I'm allowed to keep coming back?" She shouldn't. She really shouldn't. For now she typed, "Don't make me regret it. I won't. I promise." Promises. He'd made those before. But something about this one felt different. Maybe because this time, he had nothing to gain except her. No father to please. No family approval to earn. No social position to maintain. Just her. In a rented cottage in Vermont. With canned soup and a truck that barely ran and a life that didn't fit his world at all. If he was lying, it was the most elaborate lie she'd ever seen. If he was telling the truth, she wasn't ready to think about that yet. Sunday morning brought rain. Cold, steady, the kind that turned Vermont roads to mud and made everything miserable. Naomi assumed Declan wouldn't come. Assumed the weather would buy her a day of breathing room. She was wrong. At 7 a.m., she heard his car in her driveway. By 7:15, he was on her ladder in a rain jacket, working on her gutter like the weather was irrelevant. She watched from her kitchen window, coffee cooling in her hands. He was going to catch pneumonia. He was going to slip on the wet ladder. He was going to. She grabbed her own rain jacket and went outside. "Get down from there," she called up. He looked down at her, rain dripping from his hair. "Almost done. Just need to reattach this section." "Declan. It's pouring. You're going to fall." "I'm being careful." That's what people say right before they fall. 5 more minutes. Now. Something in her voice made him listen. He descended slowly, rain making the ladder slick. When he reached the bottom, he was soaked through despite the jacket. His jeans were plastered to his legs. Water dripped from his nose. "You're freezing," Naomi said. "I'm fine." "You're shaking." "Just cold." But his teeth were chattering slightly. She made a decision. Inside. Now. "Naomi. Don't argue with me. You're going to take a hot shower and drink something warm and dry off before you die of hypothermia on my property." "I don't want to impose." "You've been imposing for almost 2 weeks. Little late for that concern." She gestured toward the cottage. "Move." He moved. 20 minutes later, Declan emerged from her bathroom in clean clothes from his car, hair damp but no longer dripping. He looked younger somehow. Vulnerable. Without the rain and the determination and the working man persona. He just looked like someone who needed taking care of. Naomi handed him a mug of tea. "Sit." He sat at her kitchen table, wrapping his hands around the warmth. "Thank you." "You're an idiot." "Probably." "Working on a ladder in the rain. What were you thinking?" "That your gutter needed fixing and I promised I'd take care of it." "Not at the risk of breaking your neck." It wasn't that dangerous. It was absolutely that dangerous. She sat across from him, her own mug in hand. "Declan, you can't. You can't put yourself at risk like that. Not for a gutter. Not for me." "Why not?" "Because I don't want you hurt. You've been telling me to leave for 2 weeks." "That's different." "How?" She didn't have an answer for that. Or rather, she did. But saying it out loud would mean admitting things she wasn't ready to admit. They sat in silence, drinking tea while rain drummed against the windows. Her cottage felt smaller with him in it. More intimate. Like the walls were pressing them closer together whether she wanted them to or not. "Tell me about the divorce," she said finally. "You said it lasted 6 months. What happened?" Declan stared into his tea. "We got married on October 12, 2019. 2 weeks after you left. The wedding was everything my family wanted. 200 guests, St. Paul's Cathedral, reception at the estate. Vanessa looked beautiful. I felt like I was attending my own funeral." Naomi's chest hurt, but she stayed quiet. Let him continue. "The marriage was polite. Cordial. We had separate bedrooms from the first night. Mutual decision. We'd have dinner together when social obligations required it. We attended events as a couple. Smiled for cameras. Played our parts. But there was nothing real between us. Nothing alive. She knew it. I knew it. By February, we couldn't even pretend anymore. What changed? I called her Naomi. He looked up, meeting her eyes. We were at some charity gala. She was talking about the garden redesign she wanted to do. And I said, "That sounds perfect, Naomi." Just automatic. Because I was thinking about you. Always thinking about you. And she looked at me and said, "I can't do this anymore. Neither of us can." She left you. We left each other. Filed jointly. It was the most honest thing we'd done since the wedding. He set down his mug. My uncle was furious. Said I'd embarrassed the family. Half my relatives took Vanessa's side. Said I'd been unfair to her, which was true. The other half stopped speaking to me for refusing to remarry quickly and fix the situation. And your estate. Your responsibilities. Still there. Still mine. I hired better managers. Learned to delegate. Realized I'd been using duty as an excuse my whole life. To avoid making real choices, to avoid risk, to avoid becoming someone beyond what my father wanted me to be. He leaned forward slightly. Losing you taught me that lesson too late. But I learned it, Naomi. I learned that a life spent fulfilling other people's expectations isn't really a life at all. So you came looking for me. So I came looking for you, he confirmed. Spent 4 years searching. And now I'm here. In your cottage. Drinking your tea. Trying to convince you that I'm worth a second chance even though I don't deserve one. Rain pounded harder against the roof. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Outside, the day was gray and cold. Inside, something was shifting between them. Ice cracking, walls weakening. Why didn't you fight for me then? The question came out raw. Unplanned. 5 years ago. When your father made his demand. Why didn't you fight? Declan's face crumpled slightly. Because I was afraid. Because I'd spent my whole life being what he needed me to be. And I didn't know how to be anything else. Because saying no to him meant becoming someone new, and I was terrified of that person. Of who I'd be without the script I'd been following since my mother died. So you chose the script over me. Yes. The word was hollow. And I've regretted it every single day since. That doesn't fix it. I know. Nothing fixes it. I can't give you back 5 years. Can't undo the hurt. Can't erase the fact that when it mattered most, I failed you. He reached across the table slowly, palm up, offering. Not taking. But I can stand here now and tell you that I've spent 5 years becoming someone different. Someone braver. Someone who knows that love matters more than legacy. And I can promise that if you give me another chance, even just the chance to prove I've changed, I won't fail you again. Naomi looked at his hand. Calloused now from work she'd watched him do. Steady despite everything. Waiting for her to decide. She didn't take it. Not yet. I need time, she said quietly. I need to think. Take all the time you need. He pulled his hand back without protest. I'm not going anywhere. What about Thanksgiving? That's Thursday. Don't you have family obligations? My uncle hosts. I'm not invited. Haven't been since the divorce. Declan. It's fine. I'd rather be here anyway. If you'll let me. You can't spend Thanksgiving alone in an inn. I've had worse Thanksgivings. Last year I flew to London just to avoid the family drama. Spent the day in a hotel room ordering room service. The image made her heart hurt. This man, this duke with his estate and his title and his money. Spending holidays alone because he'd chosen love over duty and lost both. Come here for Thanksgiving, she heard herself say. His head snapped up. What? Come here. Thursday. I'm cooking. Nothing fancy, just turkey breast and sides. Clara's coming. You can meet her properly. Answer her terrifying questions about your intentions. Earn your keep by helping with dishes. Naomi, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I'm choosing to. There's a difference. She stood, needing space. But this doesn't mean anything, Declan. This doesn't mean I've forgiven you or that we're anything. It just means I don't want you alone on Thanksgiving. Okay. He stood too, careful not to crowd her in the small space. Okay. Thank you. I'll bring wine. And dessert. And whatever else you need. Just bring yourself. And maybe chocolate. Clara likes chocolate. Dark or milk? Dark. 70% or higher. She's particular. Noted. He moved toward the door, then paused. The gutter's not finished. I can come back tomorrow when the rain stops. Tuesday, she said. Come back Tuesday. Give us both a day to breathe. Understanding crossed his face. Tuesday. I'll be here. After he left, Naomi stood at her window watching his taillights disappear through the rain. Her cottage felt emptier without him. Quieter. Like he'd taken some of the air with him when he went. She picked up his tea mug, still warm, and carried it to the sink. Washed it slowly. Dried it. Put it away in the cabinet where it belonged. Then she went to her studio and stared at the lady's slipper orchid that still wasn't right. The petals looked flat. Lifeless. Like she'd forgotten how to capture the way light made things beautiful. She picked up her brush and started over. Again. But this time something was different. This time the petals started to bloom under her hand. Pink and white and somehow translucent. Real. Alive. She painted until the rain stopped and darkness fell and her back ached from sitting. When she finally stepped back to look at the finished piece, she realized what had changed. She'd stopped painting from memory. Started painting from hope instead. The orchid looked like it might actually survive. Tuesday morning came cold and clear. Declan arrived at 8 with better gloves, as promised, and a determined expression. Ready? He asked, gesturing to the ladder. Ready, she confirmed from her porch. She'd meant to go inside and work. Meant to give him space and maintain distance. But somehow she found herself staying outside, handing him tools when he asked, steadying the ladder when the wind picked up, making conversation that felt easier than it should. Tell me about your mother, he said from the ladder. What's she like? Strong. Stubborn. Fiercely protective. She raised me alone after my dad left. Worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. Made sure I went to college even when money was tight. She's a teacher. High school English. Loves her students. Loves books. Thinks I should have been a doctor. Why a doctor? Stability. Benefits. Steady paycheck. She worries about my freelance income. Thinks art is too precarious. Is she wrong? No. But I love what I do. That has to count for something. It counts for everything. He secured another section of gutter. She sounds incredible. She is. She's also going to grill you if you ever meet her. Fair warning. I look forward to it. You say that now. Wait until she starts asking about your 5-year plan and your intentions and your views on financial responsibility. I have excellent views on financial responsibility. You drive a Mercedes and stay at bed and breakfasts instead of budget motels. The Mercedes is practical, reliable, and the bed and breakfast was the only place in town with availability. Sure it was. He looked down at her, grinning. Are you teasing me, Naomi Baptiste? Maybe. Good. I've missed that. The moment stretched between them, light and easy and dangerously close to what they used to have. Before duty. Before choices. Before everything broke. Naomi looked away first. How's the gutter coming? Almost done. Another hour and it should be solid for winter. Thank you. Seriously. I couldn't have afforded to hire someone for this. I'm not doing it for thank yous. But his voice was gentle. Understanding. I'm doing it because I want to. Because taking care of you, even in small ways, feels like the most important thing I've done in 5 years. Her throat tightened. Declan. I know. I know you're not ready. I know this doesn't fix anything. But I need you to know that anyway. That you matter. That you've always mattered. Before she could respond, her phone rang. She pulled it out, grateful for the interruption, then saw the name on the screen and froze. "Who is it?" Declan asked, noticing her expression. "My commission client. The Burlington Botanical Garden." She answered. "Hello." The conversation lasted 3 minutes. When she hung up, her hands were shaking. "What's wrong?" Declan was down the ladder immediately. "Tools forgotten. They want to cancel the commission." Her voice sounded distant. Not quite real. "Budget cuts. They're sorry. They'll pay a kill fee for the work I've already done, but it's only 20% of the total contract. I needed that money, Declan. I needed it for rent. For my truck payment. For—" She stopped herself. "How much do you need?" "Don't. Naomi. Don't you dare offer me money. Don't make this about your wealth and my poverty and all the ways you can swoop in and fix things. That's not what I'm doing. Isn't it? Isn't that what you've been doing since you got here? Fixing my shed, fixing my gutter, bringing coffee and tools and solutions because that's what people with money do. They throw resources at problems until the problems disappear. That's not fair. Isn't it?" She was crying now, angry and scared and hating that he was seeing her fall apart. "You can afford to chase me across state lines. You can afford to stay at inns for weeks. You can afford better ladders and gloves and whatever else you need. Meanwhile, I'm one canceled contract away from losing my home. We live in different worlds, Declan. We always have. And you showing up with your Mercedes and your determination doesn't change that." He stood very still, absorbing her words. "You're right. Stop saying that. I mean it. You're right. I do live in a different world. I've never had to worry about money. Never had to choose between rent and food. Never had to panic when a contract falls through. I can't understand what that's like. I can only listen. And learn. And try not to make it worse. Then don't offer me money. I won't. But I can offer you help. Different help. I have connections in Boston. Botanical gardens, museums, nature publications. Let me make some calls. Not as the Duke. Just as someone who knows people who might need a talented illustrator. I'm not buying you work. I'm opening doors. You're the one who walks through them." Naomi wiped her face roughly. "That's still using your privilege." "Yes, it is. But my privilege exists whether I use it or not. The question is whether I use it to help people I care about or whether I pretend it doesn't exist because acknowledging it makes me uncomfortable." He took a careful step closer. "Let me help, Naomi. Please. Not because you need saving. But because I know people and you deserve opportunities and there's nothing wrong with using connections when they're offered freely." She wanted to say no. Wanted to prove she could handle this alone. But the truth was, she was scared. Scared of losing her cottage. Scared of calling her mother and admitting she was struggling. Scared of going back to the instability she'd worked so hard to escape. "Just making calls," she said finally. "No money. No pulling strings. Just introductions." "Just introductions," he promised. "The rest is up to you." She nodded, exhausted suddenly. Like the fight had drained something essential from her bones. "Go inside," Declan said gently. "I'll finish the gutter. You work on what you can salvage from the Burlington Commission. And tomorrow I'll start making calls." "Why are you doing this?" "Because you need help. And I can help. That's enough reason." "No. I mean all of it. The work. The persistence. The everything. Why do you care this much?" He looked at her with an expression that made her chest ache. "Because 5 years ago, I learned what life felt like without you. And I never want to feel that way again. Because you make the world make sense in a way it never did before. Because loving you is the only thing I've ever done that felt completely, entirely right." He paused. "Because you're worth it, Naomi. You've always been worth it. I was just too blind to see it when it mattered." She didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to hold all the emotion in his words without breaking apart. So she went inside and left him to finish her gutter while she stared at half-finished illustrations and tried to figure out how to start over. Again. The way she'd been starting over for 5 years. Except this time, she wasn't entirely alone. And that terrified her more than anything. Thanksgiving morning arrived with frost on the windows and nervous energy in Naomi's chest. She'd been cooking since 6 a.m., turkey breast in the oven, sweet potatoes roasting, green beans prepped, cornbread cooling on the counter. Her mother's recipes, adjusted for 3 people instead of 2. Simple food. Honest food. Nothing like the elaborate Thanksgiving spreads Ravenscroft's chef used to prepare. She wondered if Declan would notice. If he'd compare her small cottage meal to the feasts he was used to. If he'd realize, sitting at her thrift store table, exactly how wide the gap between their worlds really was. At 10 a.m., Clara arrived with a bottle of wine and a knowing look. "So," the older woman said, settling into Naomi's kitchen like she owned it. "Today's the day I meet the Duke who's been camping out in your garden for 3 weeks. He hasn't been camping. He's been staying at the inn. Same difference. Man's been here every day for 22 days. I've been counting." Clara opened the wine to let it breathe. "You going to tell me what's happening between you two, or do I have to guess?" "Nothing's happening. Honey, I've lived 71 years. I know what nothing looks like. This isn't it." Naomi checked the turkey temperature, avoiding Clara's eyes. "He's helping me. That's all." "Helping you fall back in love with him?" "I never stopped loving him. That's the problem." The admission slipped out before she could stop it. Clara made a soft sound, not quite sympathy, not quite satisfaction. Just understanding. "Then what are you afraid of? That he'll leave again. That this is just guilt or nostalgia or some midlife crisis where he thinks he wants a simple life but really just wants to feel like a good person. That I'll let him in and he'll realize I'm not worth appending his entire world for." She set down the thermometer with shaking hands. "That I'll survive him leaving once but not twice." Clara crossed the kitchen and pulled Naomi into a hug that smelled like lavender and decades of wisdom. "You'll survive anything, honey. You always have. But maybe, just maybe, you don't have to. Maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe he really has changed. Maybe this time, you get the happy ending. Life doesn't work that way. Sometimes it does. You just have to be brave enough to believe it." Before Naomi could respond, she heard a car in the driveway. Her stomach flipped. "That'll be him," Clara said, releasing her. "Go answer the door. I'll watch the turkey. And honey." She fixed Naomi with a stern look. "Give the man a chance. A real one. Not just the scraps you've been feeding him for 3 weeks. You deserve to be happy. Don't punish yourself for his mistakes." Declan stood on her porch holding a bakery box, a bottle of wine that probably cost more than her grocery budget, and flowers, black-eyed Susans out of season, which meant he'd track them down specially. "Happy Thanksgiving," he said. He looked good. Too good. Dark jeans, a gray sweater that made his eyes impossible to ignore, hair slightly damp from a recent shower. He looked like every romance novel cover she'd ever seen and every bad decision she'd ever considered making. "You brought flowers. Clara said you liked them." Was she lying? "No. But it's November. These aren't in season. I called around. Found a florist in Burlington who had some in her greenhouse. She seemed excited someone was requesting them specifically. He offered them to her. I wanted to get it right." Naomi took the flowers, their stems wrapped in brown paper, and tried to ignore how her hands trembled slightly. "Come in. Clara's in the kitchen terrorizing my turkey." "I heard that," Clara called. "And I'm not terrorizing. I'm basting." Declan stepped inside, and Naomi watched him take in her cottage the way he had 2 weeks ago, but different now. Like he was memorizing it. Like this small space mattered to him. "Something smells incredible," he said. "It's just turkey. Nothing fancy. It smells like home." The word landed between them. Heavy and complicated. Because whose home? His estate with its 24 rooms? Or her cottage with its thrift store furniture and water-stained ceiling. Before she could spiral, Clara appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. "So you're the Duke," she said, looking him up and down with the kind of assessment that made grown men nervous. "Declan Ashford, Duke of Ravenscroft Estate. Net worth approximately 200 million. Divorced after 6 months of marriage. Currently living at the Maple Grove Inn and courting my neighbor like you're in a Regency novel." Declan's eyes widened. "You've done your research. I have Google and too much time. Also, you're all over those society pages. Eligible bachelor, they call you. Though why a 40-something divorce qualifies as eligible is beyond me." She crossed her arms. "What are your intentions toward Naomi?" "Clara." Naomi protested. "We talked about this. We talked about me being polite. I'm being polite. I haven't asked about his tax returns yet." Despite himself, Declan smiled. "My intentions are to prove I'm worth a second chance. To show Naomi that I've spent 5 years becoming someone who won't make the same mistakes. To be whatever she needs. Friend, handyman, or if she'll let me, eventually, something more. And if she never lets you be something more? Then I'll still be here. Because loving someone doesn't require them to love you back. It just requires showing up." Clara studied him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she nodded. "Good answer. You get to stay for dinner. But I'm watching you, Duke. Hurt her again and you'll answer to me." "Yes, ma'am." "And stop calling me ma'am. Makes me feel ancient. It's Clara." "Yes, Clara." She turned back to the kitchen, muttering something about men and flowers and romance novels. Naomi caught Declan's eye, saw him fighting a grin. "She's terrifying," he whispered. "Told you. I like her already." Dinner was chaotic in the best way. Clara told stories about her late husband, a librarian who'd proposed with a first edition of Emily Dickinson. Declan talked about learning carpentry from YouTube and the maintenance crew at Ravenscroft, making himself the butt of every joke. Naomi found herself laughing more than she had in weeks, watching these two people she cared about circle each other like boxers figuring out respect. "So Declan," Clara said over sweet potatoes, "what exactly does a duke do all day, besides fix gutters and pine after women who are too smart for him?" "Mostly sign papers. Attend meetings about the estate. Make appearances at charity events. Pretend I'm interested in horse racing and yacht clubs and all the things wealthy people are supposed to care about." "Sounds boring." "It is boring. That's why I've been in Vermont for 3 weeks instead. And your family's okay with that?" "My family doesn't speak to me. Not since the divorce. My uncle, the current patriarch, made it clear I'm an embarrassment. Choosing personal happiness over family duty. Can you imagine?" The dry way he said it made Clara laugh. "I like you better than I wanted to." "Is that a compliment?" "From me?" "Yes." After dinner, while Naomi cleared dishes, Declan and Clara sat in the living room with coffee. She could hear them talking. Clara's questions pointed but kind. Declan's answers honest in a way that made her chest ache. "Why do you come after her?" Clara asked. "Really? You had 4 years to search. Why not give up?" "Because I couldn't." His voice was quiet. "Certain. I tried to move on. Tried to convince myself she was better off without me. But every garden I walked through, every botanical illustration I saw, every quiet moment, she was there. In my head. In my heart. I realized I could spend the rest of my life trying to forget her, or I could spend it trying to earn my way back. The second option seemed less painful." "And if she never takes you back? Then I'll have spent 5 years becoming someone better anyway. Someone who knows how to fix things with his hands. Someone who understands that love matters more than legacy. Someone who might deserve her, even if she doesn't want him." A pause. "But I hope she wants me. God, I hope she wants me." Naomi stood in her kitchen, hands frozen on a dish towel, tears running down her face. She'd been so focused on protecting herself that she hadn't considered what it cost him to be here. To show up every day knowing she might never forgive him. To work on her cottage and make her laugh and sit through Clara's interrogation with grace and honesty and hope. He wasn't here because he thought he could fix everything with money or charm or privilege. He was here because he loved her. Simply. Completely. Without guarantee of anything in return. She dried her hands and walked into the living room. Both of them looked up, Clara with knowing eyes, Declan with careful hope. "I need to talk to Declan," Naomi said quietly. "Alone. If that's okay." Clara stood immediately. "I should get home anyway. Check on my cat. Thank you for dinner, honey. It was perfect." She hugged Naomi, then whispered in her ear, "Be brave. You deserve this." After Clara left, the cottage felt too quiet. Too small. Just Naomi and Declan and 3 weeks of unspoken things filling the space between them. "Want to sit?" she asked, gesturing to the couch. They sat at opposite ends. Close enough to talk, far enough to breathe. Naomi pulled a throw pillow into her lap, needing something to hold. "I heard you," she said. "Talking to Clara. About why you came after me." Declan's face went carefully neutral. "I didn't mean for you to." "I'm glad I did." She twisted the pillow fringe between her fingers. "Because I've been so focused on the past. On what you did 5 years ago. On protecting myself from getting hurt again. But I haven't been thinking about what it means that you're here. Really here. Day after day. Fixing things and making me laugh and sitting through Clara's interrogation like it's a privilege instead of a punishment." "It is a privilege." "See, that's the thing." She finally looked at him. "You say things like that and you mean them. You look at my cottage like it's special. You drink canned soup like it's gourmet. You learn carpentry from YouTube and drive an hour for ladders and bring out-of-season flowers because my neighbor said I like them. You're trying so hard to be what I need that I almost believe you." Almost. "I'm terrified, Declan. I'm terrified that this is real. That you really did change. That you really do love me enough to give up your world for mine. Because if that's true, if you're really here for the right reasons, then I have to choose. I have to decide if I'm brave enough to let you in. And I don't know if I am." He shifted closer. Just an inch, but it felt like everything. "What are you afraid of?" "Everything. I'm afraid you'll wake up one day and realize I'm not worth it. That this cottage and this life and this version of me isn't enough compared to what you left behind. I'm afraid your family will pull you back. I'm afraid of needing you and then losing you. I'm afraid of being happy because every time I've been happy, something's taken it away." "Naomi." "But I'm also afraid of sending you away." Her voice cracked. "Because these 3 weeks, watching you work in my garden, eating lunch together, going to Burlington, having you here for Thanksgiving, they've been the happiest I've felt in 5 years. And that terrifies me more than anything. That you showed up and reminded me what it feels like to not be alone. What it feels like to be loved by someone who sees me. Really sees me. Not just the art I make or the life I've built, but me. The scared parts and the stubborn parts and the parts that still miss you even though I tried so hard not to." Declan reached across the space between them. Slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her hand in both of his. "I see you," he said quietly. "I see how brave you are. How you built this life from nothing because you refused to let heartbreak destroy you. I see how you love your mother and Clara and your work and this cottage and everything you've touched. I see your strength and your art and your ridiculous stubbornness about asking for help. I see the woman who told a duke to sleep in her garden shed and meant it." His thumbs traced circles on her palm. "And I see the woman who's been hurt. Who's afraid to trust me. Who has every right to send me away. I see all of it, Naomi. And I'm still here. I'm still choosing you. What if I can't do this?" she whispered. "What if I try and it's too hard and I break? Then we'll figure it out together. One day at a time. One small choice at a time. You don't have to decide everything right now. You just have to decide if you're willing to try." She looked at their hands. His holding hers like she was something precious. Calloused now from work. Changed from the man he used to be. But still him. Still Declan. Still the person who'd watched her paint and brought her tea and made her believe, for 18 months at Ravenscroft, that she deserved to be loved. "I got 3 calls yesterday," she said. "From your introductions. Botanical gardens in Boston and Connecticut. A museum in Providence. They all want to see my portfolio. One of them already offered me a commission." His face lit up. "Naomi, that's incredible. It's because of you. Your connections. Your privilege. It's because of your talent. I just opened doors. You're the one they want. But it proves my point, doesn't it? That we exist in different worlds. That you can make one phone call and change my financial situation while I've been scraping by for 5 years. That's not a partnership, Declan. That's not equal. You're right. It's not equal. My privilege exists whether we're together or not. The question is whether I use it to help people I love or whether I hoard it because acknowledging the inequality makes me uncomfortable." He squeezed her hand gently. "I can't change the fact that I was born wealthy and you weren't. I can't pretend we started from the same place. But I can share what I have. Not because you need saving, but because loving someone means wanting them to thrive. If that makes you uncomfortable, I understand. But I won't apologize for opening doors when I have the keys." She was crying again. Silently. Because he was right and she hated it. Hated that his privilege could help her. Hated that she needed the help. Hated that loving him meant accepting all the complicated, messy, unequal parts of who they were. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "How to love you without losing myself. How to accept help without feeling like I'm giving up my independence. How to trust you when you've hurt me before. We figure it out together. We talk. We fight when we need to. We set boundaries. We mess up and apologize and try again." He brought her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. "I'm not asking for perfect, Naomi. I'm just asking for a chance. A real chance. Not the scraps you've been giving me for 3 weeks, but an actual try at this. At us. And if it doesn't work, then at least we'll know. At least we tried. At least we gave ourselves the chance neither of us had 5 years ago when I chose fear over love." She pulled her hand back slowly. Not rejection. Just space. Just a moment to breathe and think and feel all the terrifying hope building in her chest. "I need to know something first," she said. "If I say yes, if I agree to try this, what does that look like? You keep talking about moving to Vermont, but what about your estate? Your responsibilities? Your title? Are you really willing to give all that up? Or are we going to keep existing in this bubble where you play handyman in my garden but eventually duty calls you home?" Declan stood, walked to her window, stared out at the darkness. When he turned back, his expression was serious. Resolved. "I've spent the last 2 weeks making arrangements," he said. "James, my estate manager, has agreed to take over day-to-day operations. My uncle is thrilled, actually. Thinks it's about time I stepped back. I'll still own Ravenscroft. Still have responsibilities. But I can handle 90% of it remotely. The other 10%, board meetings, major decisions, annual galas, I'll fly back for. But my home, my life, my focus, that'll be here. With you. If you'll have me. You've already arranged all this?" "I started the week I got here. Because I meant what I said, Naomi. I'm not here for a visit. I'm here because this is where I want to be. Where I need to be. With or without you, I'm not going back to that life. I'm done living for a legacy I don't believe in. I'm done being the duke everyone expects me to be instead of the man I actually am. And what if your family fights you on this? They can try. But Ravenscroft is mine. Has been since my father died. They can disapprove all they want. They can't take it from me. And honestly," he moved back to the couch, sat closer this time, "I don't care anymore. I spent 33 years caring what they thought. Caring about family approval and social standing and doing the right thing according to people who valued money more than humanity. I'm done. The only approval I want is yours. The only standing I care about is whether you think I'm worth standing beside. Naomi's breath caught. Declan, I love you. He said it clearly, firmly, like he'd been holding it back too long. I love you, Naomi Baptiste. I love your art and your stubbornness and the way you take your coffee. I love your terrible thrift store furniture and your cottage that smells like paint and herbs. I love how you love your mother and Clara and the garden you built with your own hands. I love that you told me to sleep in your shed. I love that you made me earn every single moment I've spent with you for 3 weeks. I love who you are and who you've become and the life you've built without me. And if you give me the chance, I'll spend the rest of my life proving that loving you is the best decision I've ever made. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at this man who'd broken her heart and spent 5 years trying to earn it back and was looking at her now like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Say something, he whispered. Please. Even if it's no. Even if it's goodbye. Just say something. Naomi stood, crossed the small space between them, and before fear could stop her, before doubt could intervene, she cupped his face in her hands and kissed him. He froze for half a heartbeat. Then his arms came around her waist, pulling her closer, and he kissed her back like he'd been waiting 5 years for this exact moment. Like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. Like she was home and he'd finally found his way back. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she pressed her forehead to his. I love you too, she whispered. God help me, I love you too. And I'm terrified and I don't know if this will work and I'm probably making a mistake, but I want to try. I want to try, Declan. I want us to try. His hands came up to frame her face, thumbs wiping away tears she didn't realize had fallen. We'll make it work. I promise. We'll figure it out together. No more choosing duty over me. Never again. You come first. Always. No more secrets. No more protecting me from hard conversations. Full honesty. Even when it's uncomfortable. And if your family makes you choose. I already chose. You. Always you. She kissed him again because words weren't enough. Because 5 years of missing him and 3 weeks of resistance and every moment of fear dissolved into this. His mouth on hers, his arms around her, his heart beating against her chest like it was trying to match her rhythm. When they finally pulled apart for air, Declan was smiling. Real. Unguarded. Happy in a way she'd never seen him at Ravenscroft. Does this mean I can stop sleeping at the inn? He asked. She laughed. Surprised and bright. Don't push your luck, Duke. Worth asking. You can stay here. Tonight. But you're sleeping on the couch. I'll take it. And tomorrow we set boundaries. Real ones. About what this looks like and how fast we move and what I need to feel safe. Whatever you need. We'll do it your way. She stepped back, creating space even though her body protested. I should finish the dishes. I'll help. So they did. Together. In her small kitchen with her thrift store dishes and Thanksgiving leftovers. He washed, she dried, and they worked in the kind of comfortable silence that only came from really knowing someone. From loving them. From choosing them. From trying. Outside, November darkness pressed against the windows. Inside, something new was beginning. Fragile. Uncertain. But real. And that was enough. December arrived with snow and cautious hope. Declan moved out of the Maple Grove Inn and into a small rental house 3 miles from Naomi's cottage. 2 bedrooms, a working fireplace, space for an office where he could handle estate business remotely. Close enough to see her daily. Far enough to give her the breathing room she needed. They took it slow. Deliberately. Painfully slow sometimes, when all Naomi wanted was to close the distance and pretend the past 5 years hadn't happened. But they had happened. And pretending wouldn't heal anything. So they dated. Actually dated. He picked her up for dinner at the diner in town. She met him at his rental to cook together. Teaching him how to make her mother's cornbread, laughing when he burned the first batch. They walked through early snow, talked about everything and nothing, learned each other again. Tell me about the worst day of the divorce, she said one afternoon in mid-December, wrapped in a blanket on his couch while snow fell outside. He was quiet for a long moment. "The day I signed the papers. Vanessa and I met at the lawyer's office. Very civilized. Very polite. We signed. Shook hands. Wished each other well. And I walked out of that building and sat in my car and realized I just legally ended something that should never have begun. I'd wasted 6 months of both our lives trying to honor my dead father's wishes instead of living my own life. And you were gone. Somewhere I couldn't find you. And I thought, this is it. This is what choosing wrong looks like. An empty car in a parking garage and no one to call who'd actually care." Naomi's chest ached. "I would have cared. If I'd known." "I know. That made it worse. Knowing you would have cared and I'd thrown that away." "Your turn," he said. "Worst day after you left." She didn't have to think about it. 6 months after I moved to Vermont. I'd just finished an illustration I was proud of. Really proud. The kind where everything clicked and I knew it was my best work. And my first instinct was to call you. To tell you about it. To hear you ask questions about the process and tell me it was beautiful even though you probably wouldn't fully understand the technical parts. I reached for my phone and your number was gone. I'd deleted it the day I left. And I realized I'd deleted you from my contacts but not from my life. That you were still the first person I wanted to share good news with. And I cried for 3 hours. He pulled her closer, tucked her head under his chin. "I'm here now. Tell me about your work. All of it. Every technical detail. I want to know." So she did. Talked about the lady's slipper orchid that had finally come right. About the commission from Providence that wanted 15 pieces by spring. About her dreams of publishing a book someday. A field guide to rare plants, illustrated entirely by her own hand. "You'll do it," he said with such certainty it made her believe him. "You'll publish that book and it'll be in every botanical garden gift shop in the country. And I'll buy 100 copies and hand them out to everyone I know." That's excessive. That's love. Simple. True. The way he said things now, without the polished veneer of the Duke, just as himself. As the man who'd learned to be real. The call came on December 15th. Naomi was in her studio, working on a commission, when her phone rang. Unknown Massachusetts number. She almost didn't answer. "Hello. Is this Naomi Baptiste?" A woman's voice. Cultured. "Cool. Who's asking?" "My name is Vanessa Whitmore Ashford." "Well, Vanessa Whitmore Sterling now. I'm Declan's ex-wife. I was hoping we could talk." Naomi's hand tightened on the phone. "About what?" "About Declan. About you. About whether you have any idea what you're getting into." A pause. "I'm in Burlington for a gallery opening. Could we meet? Just coffee. 30 minutes. I promise I'm not here to cause trouble." Every instinct said no. Said this was a terrible idea. Said nothing good could come from meeting the woman Declan had chosen over her 5 years ago. But curiosity won. "There's a coffee shop on Church Street. Muddy Waters. Tomorrow at 10. I'll be there. Thank you, Naomi." She didn't tell Declan. Should have. But something kept her quiet. Some need to hear what Vanessa had to say without his presence influencing the conversation. The next morning, she drove to Burlington alone. Vanessa was already there when Naomi arrived. Mid-30s, blonde, elegant in the way wealthy women always were. Cashmere sweater, subtle jewelry, perfect posture. She looked like she belonged on magazine covers. Like exactly the kind of woman a duke should marry. "Naomi." Vanessa stood, offered her hand. "Thank you for meeting me." They shook. Ordered coffee. Sat across from each other in a corner booth while December cold pressed against the windows. "I'll be direct," Vanessa said. "I'm not here to win him back. I'm happily remarried. My husband is wonderful. We actually love each other, which is novel. But I've been hearing things through mutual friends. That Declan left Massachusetts. That he's been in Vermont for over a month. That he's chasing some woman from his past." She took a sip of coffee. "I assume that woman is you. Why do you care?" "Because Declan and I might have had a disaster of a marriage, but I don't hate him. Actually, I respect him more now than I did when we were together. He could have stayed in that miserable marriage for appearances. Instead, he filed for divorce and dealt with the family fallout and chose honesty over convenience. That takes courage. Especially in our world. Naomi didn't know what to say to that. I'm here because I think you deserve to know what you're signing up for, Vanessa continued. If you're serious about him. If this isn't just, I don't know, some romantic gesture on his part that'll fade when reality sets in. It won't fade. You sound certain. I am. He's not the man you married. He's changed. Has he? Vanessa leaned forward slightly. Or has he just found someone new to shape himself around? Because that's what Declan does, Naomi. He molds himself into whatever people need him to be. For his father, he was the dutiful son. For his uncle, the respectable duke. For me, the appropriate husband. Now, for you, he's what? The reformed lover? The man who chose love over duty? It's a compelling story. But stories aren't the same as truth. Anger flickered in Naomi's chest. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I lived with him for 6 months. I watched him try to be the husband his family expected while clearly wishing he was somewhere else. Someone else. I'm guessing that someone was you. He told me about the marriage. About how miserable you both were. We were. But here's what he probably didn't tell you. Even in our misery, he never fought for anything different. Never stood up to his uncle. Never told his family to back off. He just endured. Politely. Quietly. The way he'd been trained to endure since his mother died. Is that the man you want? The one who endures instead of fights? That was 5 years ago. People change. Do they? Or do they just find new circumstances that let them avoid hard choices? Vanessa's expression softened slightly. Look, I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to save you pain. Because when reality hits, when his family demands he return for some crisis, when society obligations pull at him, when the weight of that estate and that name becomes too much, what happens then? Will he choose you? Or will he fold the way he always has? Naomi's hands were shaking around her coffee cup. Why are you really here? Because I made the mistake of marrying someone who didn't know how to choose for himself. And I don't want you making the mistake of loving him. Not unless you're absolutely certain he's capable of being who you need him to be. I think you should go. Vanessa stood, gathering her coat and purse. One more thing. His uncle, Richard Ashford, is planning something. I don't know what. But I heard through the social circuit that he's furious about Declan abandoning his duties. That he's looking for leverage to bring him back in line. Watch out for that. Whatever's coming, it won't be pretty. She left before Naomi could respond. Naomi sat alone in the coffee shop, staring at her untouched drink, Vanessa's words echoing in her head. Stories aren't the same as truth. She drove home in silence. Didn't call Declan. Didn't know what to say. Was Vanessa right? Was this just another version of Declan shaping himself into what someone needed? Had he really changed, or had he just found a new role to play? The devoted lover earning redemption? She pulled into her driveway to find his car already there. He was in her garden despite the cold, building something near her shed. Hey, he called when he saw her. His face was bright. Happy. I'm making you a cold frame. 4 winter vegetables. Thought you could grow lettuce and spinach even in snow. I found plans online and... He stopped, seeing her expression. What's wrong? I met with Vanessa this morning. His face went carefully blank. Why? She called. Said she wanted to talk. I was curious. What did she say? Naomi crossed her arms against the cold and the fear and the doubt that Vanessa had planted like seeds. She said you're good at being what people need you to be. That you molded yourself into the dutiful son for your father, the appropriate husband for her, and now the reformed lover for me. She asked if you'd really changed or if you've just found a new role to play. Declan set down his tools slowly. And what do you think? I don't know. That's the problem. I want to believe you've changed. I want to believe this is real. But what if she's right? What if you're just performing redemption? What if the real test comes and you fold again? What real test? Your family. Your estate. Some crisis that demands you choose between your world and mine. What happens then, Declan? Do you choose me? Or do you become the Duke everyone expects again? He walked toward her slowly. I can't prove the future. I can't guarantee I'll be perfect. But I can tell you this. I'm not performing anything. This isn't a role. This is me learning to be myself for the first time in my life. The man building cold frames in your garden because I want to. The man who watches YouTube videos about carpentry because it makes me feel useful. The man who'd rather eat your grilled cheese than attend any gala my uncle could throw. This is who I actually am when I'm not trying to be what everyone else needs. But what if duty calls? What if your estate needs you? What if? Then I'll handle it. And I'll come back. To you. To this cottage. To the life we're building. Because this is my home now, Naomi. Not Ravenscroft. Not Massachusetts. Here. With you. And I'll choose that every single time. You can't know that. Yes, I can. Because I already chose it. I chose it when I divorced Vanessa. I chose it when I started searching for you. I chose it when I rented a house in Vermont instead of staying in my comfortable estate. I choose it every morning when I wake up and decide to stay instead of running back to what's familiar. He cupped her face gently. I know you're scared. I know Vanessa got in your head. But you have to decide if you believe me or if you believe her. Because I can't prove myself to you if you won't let me try. Tears burned her eyes. I'm afraid of being wrong. So am I. I'm terrified I'll mess this up. That I'll disappoint you. That I'm not capable of being the man you deserve. But I'm trying anyway. Because loving you is worth the risk of failing. Is loving me worth the risk to you? The question hung between them, heavy and necessary. Was it worth it? To risk her heart again? To trust him when he'd broken that trust before? To believe in change and redemption and second chances? Before she could answer, her phone rang. She pulled it out, saw her mother's name. I should take this, she said. Of course. She answered. Hey, Mama. Baby, I need you to sit down. Her mother's voice was tight. Worried. Naomi's stomach dropped. What happened? I got a call today. From a Richard Ashford. Said he was Declan's uncle. He wanted to know about you. About your relationship with his nephew. About your background and your family and... Her mother's voice shook. Baby, he wasn't nice. He was looking for dirt. For reasons Declan shouldn't be with you. And when I told him it was none of his business, he said I should be careful. That people who get involved with the Ashfords tend to get hurt. Naomi's hands were shaking. Declan was watching her, concern etched on his face. Did he threaten you? Not directly. But the implication was clear. He wants Declan back. And he's willing to make life difficult for anyone standing in the way. I'll handle it, Mama. I promise. Don't worry. Too late for that. I'm worried. This is what I was afraid of 5 years ago. That his world would chew you up. Be careful, baby. Please. After she hung up, Naomi looked at Declan. Your uncle called my mother. He's investigating me. Threatening her. Trying to find leverage to bring you back to Massachusetts. Declan's expression went dark. Cold. Dangerous in a way she'd never seen. What did he say? That people who get involved with Ashfords get hurt. That she should be careful. God damn it. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling him right now. Don't. Naomi, he threatened your mother. I know. But you calling him angry is what he wants. He wants you emotional. Reactive. Wants to prove you're distracted and irresponsible. That I'm a bad influence. She took his phone gently from his hand. We handle this smart. Not angry. What's the worst thing he can do? Cut me off from family completely. Turn the rest of them against me. Make things difficult for estate business. He paused. Try to hurt you. Professionally. Personally. He has connections. Money. Influence. If he wants to make your life hard, he can. Then we beat him to it. What? We go public. We control the narrative. You're Declan Ashford, Duke of Ravenscroft Estate. If you announce you're in a relationship with me, proudly, publicly, what can he do? Call you irresponsible? You're 38 and divorced. You're allowed to date whoever you want. Call me inappropriate? That makes him look like a classist snob. He has power when we hide. He has nothing when we're honest. Declan stared at her. You want to go public? Let society and the gossip sites and everyone else pick apart our relationship. I want to stand beside you. Openly. The way we should have 5 years ago. No hiding. No shame. Just us. Together. And if your uncle doesn't like it, he can choke on his champagne at whatever gala he's attending. Despite everything, Declan smiled. That's brilliant. And terrifying. Welcome to my world. Everything's terrifying. She stepped closer to him. But I'm tired of fear making decisions for me. For us. Vanessa said you mold yourself into what people need. Maybe that was true once. But the man I've watched for the past month isn't molding. He's building. Building a life. Building a home. Building us. And I believe that. I choose to believe that. Even after what she said. Especially after what she said. Because she's still seeing you through the lens of who you were. Not who you've become. And I've seen who you've become, Declan. I've watched you learn carpentry and burn cornbread and sit through Clara's interrogation with grace. I've watched you choose me every single day. That's not performance. That's proof. He kissed her then, deep and grateful and full of relief. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. I'm calling my uncle, he said. But not to yell. To inform him that I'm done living according to Ashford expectations. That I'm in love with you. That if he comes near you or your mother again, I'll make his life very difficult. And then I'm posting something on social media. Nothing scandalous, just honest. That I'm happy. That I'm in Vermont with someone I love. That the gossip can say what it wants. Your family will lose their minds. Good. They've had their minds too long. Time they lost them. The social media post went up that evening. Simple. A photo of Naomi's cottage with snow falling. Warm light in the windows. Caption. Found home. Found happiness. Found the woman I should have fought for 5 years ago. Her name is Naomi Baptiste. She's brilliant, talented, and too good for me. I'm the luckiest man alive. Within an hour, it had 10,000 likes. Within 2 hours, society blogs were picking it up. By morning, it was everywhere. Boston magazines, New York gossip sites, even a mention in a lifestyle publication. The Duke of Ravenscroft was off the market. Dating an unknown botanical illustrator from Vermont. Living in a rental house instead of his estate. Choosing love over legacy. The comments were mixed. Some supportive. Some cruel. Some confused about how a duke ended up in Vermont with a black woman nobody had heard of. Naomi read them once, then closed her phone. Regrets? Declan asked. They were at his rental house, curled together on his couch while the internet had opinions about their relationship. No. You. Not even a little. His phone rang. His uncle. Declan answered on speaker. Have you lost your mind? Richard Ashford's voice was sharp with fury. Posting about some woman on social media like a lovesick teenager? Do you have any idea the damage control we're doing right now? I don't care about damage control. You should. You're a duke. You represent. I represent myself. My choices. My life. Not the Ashford legacy. Not family expectations. Me. And I choose Naomi. I choose Vermont. I choose happiness over misery. If that embarrasses the family, I suggest you learn to live with embarrassment. You're making a mistake. I already made my mistake. 5 years ago when I listened to you and my father and married someone I didn't love. I'm not making that mistake again. And if you ever contact Naomi or her mother with threats again, I'll make sure every society connection you have knows exactly what kind of man you are. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I have nothing left to lose, Uncle Richard. You already cut me off emotionally. Financially, I'm independent. Socially, I don't care. What exactly can you threaten me with? Disapproval. I've had that for years. Try something new. Silence. Then, you're just like your mother. Emotional. Impractical. Choosing feelings over responsibility. Good. She was the best person in that family. Declan's voice softened. I'm done, Uncle. Done with this conversation. Done with family politics. Done with pretending. You have two choices. Accept that I'm happy, or continue being miserable that you can't control me anymore. Either way, I'm hanging up now. He ended the call. Naomi stared at him. Did you just burn that bridge completely? Yes. Felt amazing. He pulled her closer. No regrets. None. He threatened your mother. He's been making my life hell for years. I'm done giving him power over me. Your family isn't really family. Not the way they should be. Clara's more family to me after one Thanksgiving than they've been in years. Your mother, who I still haven't met properly but am terrified of, based on your descriptions, she's more family. Your family. The rest is just biology and paperwork. Naomi kissed him. Long, deep. Full of promise and hope and the beginning of something real. I love you, she whispered against his mouth. I love you too. So much. Always. They spent the night at his rental. Not hiding, not rushing, just being together. Learning the shape of each other after 5 years apart. Rediscovering what they'd lost. Building what they'd never had the chance to build before. In the morning, Naomi's phone was full of messages. Her mother, worried but supportive. Clara demanding details. 3 more commission inquiries. Apparently dating a duke was good for business. And 1 message from Vanessa. I was wrong. Congratulations. He's lucky to have you. June brought roses and weddings and new beginnings. Naomi stood in the conservatory at Ravenscroft Estate, the first time she'd been back in nearly 6 years. The space looked the same. Glass walls, tropical plants, the ghost orchid she'd spent 3 hours explaining to Declan once upon a time. You okay? Declan appeared beside her, slipping his hand into hers. Just remembering. This is where I fell for you. Watching you ask questions about pollination like it was the most fascinating thing you'd ever heard. It was fascinating. You were fascinating. He kissed her temple. Ready? Margaret's been texting. Apparently your mother and Clara have bonded over wedding planning and it's terrifying everyone. The wedding. Their wedding. Small. Intimate. Just family and close friends in Ravenscroft's rose garden. The same garden where they'd fallen in love, the same garden where everything had almost ended. Her mother had cried when they told her. Happy tears. Proud tears. You found your way back to each other. That's all I ever wanted for you, baby. Clara had demanded bridesmaid status despite being 71. I watched you fall apart and come back together. I've earned the right to stand beside you. Declan's family. Most of them hadn't come. His uncle had sent a curt declination. But a few cousins showed up. And James from the estate, who'd become genuine friends with Declan over the years. And Vanessa, surprisingly, with her new husband. She hugged Naomi and whispered, "Thank you for proving me wrong." The ceremony was simple. Personal. Naomi wore a dress from a boutique in Burlington. Nothing designer, nothing outrageous, just beautiful and hers. Declan wore a suit without his family crest. Just a man. Just himself. I choose you, he said when it was time for vows. I chose wrong once. Spent 5 years regretting it. Spent 4 years looking for you. And I'll spend the rest of my life choosing you. Every morning. Every moment. Every challenge. You're my home, Naomi. You always were. I was just too afraid to admit it when it mattered. I'm not afraid anymore." Naomi's voice shook with emotion. "You broke my heart once. I rebuilt it piece by piece in a cottage in Vermont where nobody knew my story. I thought I'd healed. Thought I was fine. Then you showed up with luggage and regret and a promise to fix my shed. And somehow, impossibly, you fixed me too. Not because I was broken, but because you reminded me what it felt like to be loved. Completely. Honestly. Imperfectly. I choose you too, Declan. Every day. Always." They kissed as the sun set over Ravenscroft's gardens. As their friends cheered. As her mother cried. As Clara took approximately 600 photos. The reception was in the estate's ballroom, the same space where engagement parties and charity galas had happened for generations. But tonight it held only people who loved them. No society obligations. No family politics. Just joy. "So," Declan said during their first dance, "how does it feel to be the Duchess of Ravenscroft?" "Terrifying. Strange. Like I'm wearing someone else's title." She smiled up at him. "Good thing I'm keeping my own name professionally. Naomi Baptiste sounds better on book covers anyway. Your field guide is incredible, by the way. I may have already ordered 50 copies." "You're ridiculous. I'm in love. There's a difference." They danced. They ate. They laughed with friends and ignored the few society photographers who'd shown up hoping for scandal. Late in the evening, Declan pulled her outside to the rose garden. Away from the noise. Just them under the stars in the place where they'd started. "I have something for you," he said. "A wedding gift." We said no gifts. We said no expensive gifts. This one's free. He pulled a piece of paper from his jacket. "I had the lawyers draw it up last week. Ravenscroft Estate, all 400 acres, the main house, the gardens, everything, is now in both our names. Equally. 50-50. You're not just the Duchess. You're the owner. My partner. In every way." Naomi stared at the document. "Declan, I can't." "You can. You are. This isn't charity. This is marriage. What's mine is yours. What's yours is mine. We build our life together. And if, God forbid, something happens to me, or if we ever face challenges, or if anyone ever tries to make you feel like you don't belong here, you have legal standing. This is your home as much as mine." Tears blurred her vision. "You're giving me half an estate? I'm giving you what you've always deserved. A home. Security. Proof that when I say I choose you, I mean it legally and financially and every other way that counts." He wiped her tears gently. "You scared me once by leaving and I couldn't find you. I'm making sure that never happens again. Not because I'm trapping you, but because you'll always have a place to come back to. If you want it. I want it. I want you. I want all of this." She kissed him through tears and joy and overwhelming love. "Thank you. For fighting for us this time. For being brave enough to choose differently. Thank you for giving me a second chance. For believing I could change. For building a life with me even though I didn't deserve it. You deserve it now. Only because you made me better." They stood in the rose garden where they'd fallen in love 6 years ago. Where they'd almost lost everything. Where they'd found their way back through carpentry and coffee and cold frames and choosing each other every single day. "Ready to go back in?" Naomi asked. "I think Clara wants to give a toast. God help us all." But Declan was smiling. "Yes. Let's go. Let's celebrate. Let's start our life together. Properly this time. No secrets. No shame. Just us. Just us." Naomi agreed. They walked back toward the ballroom hand in hand. The Duke who'd learned to choose love. The artist who'd learned to choose trust. Two people who'd broken once and healed stronger. Together. Finally. Forever. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If this story touched your heart today, consider leaving a super thanks. Your support helps me keep creating these emotional stories for you. And every single contribution, big or small, means the world. Thank you for being part of this journey. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.